So in March 3rd of 2023, Nintendo will have officially had the Switch on the market and available for a complete 6th year, and we will then transition to the 7th year of console sales for this smash hit hybrid console that is the Nintendo Switch. And with it now being this long into its life cycle, there is of course rampant debates and speculation online around what Nintendo may be planning next. And while it was once believed that a more powerful refresh or Pro model may come out extending the current generation, that notion has since changed to it likely not getting a mid-gen refresh, and we should now set our expectations to what is truly next in terms of a next-gen successor to the Switch. And in today's video, we have to break down a very interesting article that is published from Bloomberg, Takahashi Mochizuki himself, backing up the notion that Nintendo may indeed be doubling down on this current family of Switch systems that we have available today for far longer than many of us fans were expecting. And we need to break down and discuss where us Nintendo Switch fans should be setting our expectations when it comes to new Switch hardware, whether it be 2023, 2024, or even 2025 right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, today we are discussing all things Nintendo and the current state of the Nintendo Switch hardware that is sold and available. And yes, it's everyone's favorite topic. Clearly, it's not divisive at all, and everybody loves to discuss what Nintendo may be planning next. That is obviously sarcasm, but it is a topic that fans on both sides of the fence will argue about. You'll see a lot of heated debates online around this topic on when Nintendo may start to talk about and market what is next in terms of new hardware. And while there have been some interesting podcasts that have went up recently, specifically from Nate the Hate, MVG, and had special guest John Linneman on recently, I will link to that entire podcast in the description down below under the sources section, but that is not actually the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be talking about today, because they had a broad conversation around the heavily rumored Switch Pro. And while obviously no one knew it was actually going to be called that, but essentially the reason that story got picked up and ran wild in the news cycle for so long was because multiple developers and contacts that they personally had within the industry were reporting having a more powerful Switch dev kit. And that actually lines up with previous Bloomberg reporting that we saw from Takahashi Mochizuki, which is the same person we will be going over his article today, suggesting that he had verified that 11 different developers had some kind of more powerful Switch dev unit, and he even name dropped Zynga specifically, who was developing Star Wars Hunters for the Switch at the time. And many people, myself included, thought, well, we can't be that far away from new, more powerful hardware if developers are already putting out builds of games that will run on this, supposedly running in 4K via DLSS technology. And you had a lot of interesting stuff happening with the Nvidia leak that happened where NVN2 was spotted, and all of this smoke around maybe Nintendo really getting ready and ramping up developers to start developing for something that is truly ahead of the Switch that we have today in terms of raw horsepower. And this podcast essentially summarizes that all of the information that they were hearing around more powerful Switch hardware was not bad information, but rather plans change, and until anything is officially revealed and announced from Nintendo, you can never 100% expect anything they are working on behind the scenes to make it to market. And somewhere along the lines, it sounds like those plans for more powerful or a more powerful version of the current hardware were indeed scrapped, and now whatever is being developed on currently, or whether they're dev kits or not that are out there, it is likely that it is the true next gen successor, and there will be no more powerful revision of the current model Switch today. Now, while that conversation in and of itself was very interesting to listen to and kind of makes a lot of sense with why we saw such rampant Switch Pro rumors and then essentially everything fell apart and we only have the OLED model today with no under the hood performance improvements, of course, we then just shortly after that podcast went live, and the speculation is more on their part now that they think Nintendo won't put out new hardware until late 2024 or even as late as early 2025 at the soonest, and that's what will kick off the next generation hardware For the big N, we then got a very interesting article that hit online from Bloomberg around the exact specifics of Nintendo and their production plans with the current family of Switch systems today, and they are ramping up in a big way from the sounds of this article, not down, which would definitely signify that they are doubling down and sticking to this current family of systems for quite a bit longer, providing the consumer demand is there. And to get on the same page with the specifics of what's being claimed here, let's quickly hop over first to Twitter and then to Bloomberg, where you can see the following tweet from Takahashi Mochizuki that reads, "Exclusive, Nintendo plans to make more Switch units in the next fiscal year starting April versus current term. Unusually aggressive move for a game console going into 7th year on market. Nintendo plans to boost Switch output to meet resilient demand. As chip shortage ebbs, company anticipates demand rebound. Zelda-themed Switch is a possibility this year, analyst says. Nintendo Co. plans to increase production of its 6-year-old Switch console in the coming fiscal year after shipping roughly 21 million Switch consoles in the year ending March, according to people familiar with the matter. The Kyoto-based company had lowered its sales forecast for the console to 19 million units in November because of component shortages, but is now convinced it can make more and demand remains strong, said the people asking not to be named, because the discussions aren't public. The move to increase output is an unexpected measure at a late stage in the console's life cycle. Nintendo has told suppliers and assembly partners it intends to churn out more Switch units in the fiscal year starting April, but has not yet communicated a precise target, the people said. It may revise down plans later in the year if demand underwhelms. Analyst expectations are for sales to diminish, however, Nintendo's plan suggests it sees sustained demand for at least another year. The consoles, whose price starts at $199, has been hampered more by supply issues than any demand slump, Nintendo executives have said. Nintendo can grow its Switch sales in the coming year, especially if it gives them a boost with game-themed special editions of the console, said Hideki Yasuda, an analyst at Toyo Securities. The company last year released a Splatoon 3 edition of its priciest Switch OLED model, decorating the hardware with illustrations from the popular third-person shooter and helping drive sales. The company plans to release Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the highly anticipated sequel to Breath of the Wild, a game that was synonymous with the Switch in its early days, in May. A Zelda-themed Switch would entice existing console owners to buy another unit, Yasuda said. So now at this point in time, essentially all of the major sources that were expecting some kind of more powerful current gen Switch revision are essentially shifting gears and saying that yes, that's not the plans, and by all accounts, it looks like with Nintendo doing this bid to potentially ramp up Nintendo Switch supplies and produce more consoles this year than anybody would have originally thought based off of where it's at in the life cycle, it does seem to signal that we are likely supposed to expect in 2023 a Nintendo Switch themed after Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, an OLED model, of course, probably sold at $360, probably announced sometime between March and April, maybe even late February, and we should expect that thing to launch a week or two before the game actually comes out in May 12th. And Nintendo may indeed run with the current family of consoles all the way through 2023, and maybe mid to late 2024 is really the earliest that we should start to shift our expectations in terms of anything new from a hardware perspective, other than maybe a wild card, which I could definitely see Nintendo putting out a Nintendo Switch Lite OLED model, potentially sold at a $250 price point, or maybe they even drop the price of the base Lite model today to $150, which would be crazy, and then you get the OLED model in at $200. Regardless, something like that sounds reasonable and likely in 2023, but it does seem with all of these reports and now having actual data that Nintendo is planning on ramping up production in a big way of the current model Switches, it does indeed seem like all things point to stay the course for the foreseeable future. They are absolutely developing true next-gen hardware in the background somewhere right now, but we may not see any of that come to fruition anytime soon, and it will absolutely make the current model Switch one of, if not the longest Nintendo console generation ever of all time, with historic sales numbers to go along with it, because if they move all these extra consoles that they are producing this year, they could very well still be on pace to become the best-selling game console of all time, period, when it's all said and done. It may take years after the Switch 2's actual release, and maybe we see a price drop for the current family of systems, It might be 2, 3, 4 years down the road, but we are still absolutely talking about Nintendo potentially having the most historic gaming console in terms of unit sales of all time, period. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and speculation around this. Do you think that we should be setting our expectations in 2023 towards a Zelda-themed Tears of the Kingdom OLED edition? And do you think that that is all Nintendo has planned for new hardware this year? Or do you see a world where maybe, yes, there is still a possibility that more powerful hardware does launch alongside of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and maybe the ramp up in units is not for the current family of systems, but something totally different? How do you feel about the potential conversation that once upon a time there was a more powerful revision planned, but now it seems like that will not ultimately come to market? And when do you personally want to see the true next-gen successor, or just anything more powerful from Nintendo in terms of their hardware? And when do you think is the right time to do it in your eyes personally? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.